It's been a few years since I started covering the disturbing side of music, and between G.G. Allin, Mayhem, Hannah Tarash, and Satan Panonsky, I think I'm starting to feel a little bit desensitized to the world I chose to explore. I read a lot about insane live performances or crazy crimes that a musician has committed, and sometimes it starts to feel like it's all blending together. These things don't just pop out to me the way they used to. That is, until I heard about this guy.
My name is Edwin BØR-SHEIM. Yeah, hi, how are you doing? Yes.
Common bangers making a full sound, but you can't hear them cause they're underground. They never move and they never breathe.
Edwin BØR-SHEIM, the frontman for a band known as Kettle Cadaver, is a bit of an anomaly in the world of music. His insane stage antics, unique personality, and mysterious nature made him a fascinating figure in the world of underground metal. But outside of that, he was never really talked about in the same way as a G.G. Allin. He wasn't necessarily given that same spotlight, but when you look at his live performances and the character he was, it's almost surprising that he's not talked about as much. Because while researching this video, I've come across countless shows where he truly tests the boundaries of live performance and arguably outdoes almost anybody when it comes to the brutal nature of his art. A lot of this exists only as folklore or second-hand accounts, and there is a lot of it that remains undocumented. But there are a few scraps of documentation that show us the type of music that Kettle Cadaver were making, the kind of person Edwin actually was, and of course how far these live shows truly went. These include one full-length album, 2 notorious DVDs, and a documentary created in 2016 called Dead Hands Dig Deep, created by J Love and Spencer Heath. Although what we have is relatively limited, we can still create a cohesive enough timeline with it, and through that we can explore Edwin's insane life, from the trials of his personal struggles, the things that inspired him, and the things that he hated. All of this will tell us who he was and possibly give us some kind of answer as to how he became one of the most insane live performers in music history. Edwin BØR-SHEIM was born on the 8th of January 1977 and was from Temecula, California. Today, Temecula is a city with over 100,000 people, but in the 80s and 90s the population was much smaller, ranging from around 15 to 30,000. It's important to note this because a consistent theme in Edwin's life and the people around him are the fact that they came from a place where very little was happening. And this explains why a lot of them will be looking for an escape, and why this style of music and performance probably resonated with the younger people of Temecula. It's difficult to get into specifics of his upbringing because many of the details are scattered across small tidbits and stories that don't give us much information, but the general footnotes are that Edwin was a part of a relatively big family that also has a confusing past. His mother, Lila, had an array of mental health issues during Edwin's childhood. Edwin also described his stepfather as an angry man who would berate him on a consistent basis. With his troubled home life, it's not surprising that Edwin would try to escape it somehow, and he did this by drinking, taking drugs, attending backyard parties, and playing music. In Dead Hands Dig Deep, he talks about all of this and more, telling stories of the times he got into fights or evaded some pretty intense situations. You get the feeling when listening to these accounts that Edwin is leaving out certain details or omitting certain stories that might be even more traumatic. Of course, we'll never know this for sure, but it seems like there's a lot more to Edwin's younger years that may have scarred him for life. His brother Danny also features in the documentary, and between him and Edwin, they tell us more about their inspirations. They were big fans of the WWF and would have their own wrestling matches in Temecula, something that would shape a lot of Edwin's later performances. He also talks about an array of rock and grunge bands that he emulated as a child, from Nirvana to Slayer. But as Edwin got older, he started to question the authenticity of these groups and the entertainers around him. His stepfather had similar questions, and this led Edwin to tearing down the posters that he had and changing his perspective on entertainment.
Walking in my bedroom, and I'm looking at the posters I have on my wall, you know, and I'm going, okay, this guy's got big old spikes, you know, but my girlfriend's got bigger biceps than this fucking punk right here. Poster, got it. This is even pre-Kettle Cadaver, okay? So I'm telling you, you're being a little boy, and you're looking at this, who's this clown? Then, I love this record, but I remember reading that interview where they're going, oh, that's just a joke, man, that album, man, we were high, fucking, come on, dude. I'm gonna make a band one day, and it's gonna be some shit that no one's gonna fucking laugh at. And hopefully, one way or another, someone like my stepdad will have to have to, on some way or another, catch a glimpse of that.
From now on, he only wanted to do what was real and create authentic music and live shows that showed true pain and suffering, things that in his eyes had real meaning and consequences, and that's exactly what he did. In 1995, Edwin and a few friends formed the band Kettle Cadaver. The bassist, Devin, and the drummer, Corwin, are featured in the documentary and explained that they used to skate together when they were younger, but Edwin had a tendency to keep to himself. This didn't stop them from coming together and creating the band. In 1996, they released the album Halloween, a 13-song album that had a pretty consistent theme throughout. It featured tracks that stayed true to the album's title, songs like Pumpkin Man, Coffin Bangers, and Symphony of Nightmares 2. Considering the DIY nature of these songs, they were relatively well made. Edwin had a distinct, raspy voice that complemented the album well, and the band honed in on one particular sound and idea, and it made it feel like a complete project. Unfortunately, some of the later songs from this album are lost, but you can still find most of it here on YouTube. To my knowledge, this is the only full project that they put out, with the rest of their projects being DVDs or singles. There could definitely be more music out there given how makeshift and independent the band was, and it would not be surprising if they were just lost. Either way, this is what they mostly performed when they did their shows. But as you can probably guess, it wasn't the music that people necessarily paid attention to. It's hard to create an accurate timeline of when they started performing or when the intensity of the shows increased, or if it was simply like this from the start, but something that gives us a good idea of what Edwin wanted to achieve can actually be found in another one of his passions. As I mentioned previously, Edwin was a big fan of professional wrestling in his younger years, but had grown to dislike the staged nature of it. Because of that, he decided to put his own wrestling productions on, and these were as real as it gets. It's hard to describe any of these backyard shows as staged in any way, shape, or form. From the scraps online I could find and the footage that they showed in the documentary, these were basically full-fledged fights with real weapons and very real injuries. Barbed wires, bats, shattered glass, staplers, and more. Anything that could be used as a tool for violence was implemented into these shows, and it was clear that for Edwin, it had to be 100% authentic or he wouldn't do it. And this is the mentality that he took into the live shows for Kettle Cadaver. He used a similar array of items to perform his music, but obviously this time he didn't have an opponent in the ring, so instead he performed these acts on himself. Things like mutilation, self-harm, and body disfigurement were not uncommon at a Kettle Cadaver show. There were 2 DVDs in particular that documented these gigs, A Taste of Blood in 2002 and Among the Damned in 2008. There's a trailer for Taste of Blood on a page that seems to be the official Kettle Cadaver YouTube channel, and there is some clips of it in the documentary, but apart from that it is quite difficult to find. However, Among the Damned is a lot easier to obtain, and it is just as intense. So let's have a look at the DVD and get a glimpse into the insane live shows of Kettle Cadaver. The DVD starts off with a music video for the song that the DVD is named after, Among the Damned. Again, it's a pretty well-produced song and music video, and it might even give you the idea that this DVD is going to be a collection of relatively professional music videos, but you would be wrong. Immediately after this, we see a clip of Edwin snorting something. He then walks onto the stage, and the song Graveyard begins to play. As the show ensues, we see Edwin perform specific acts of mutilation, including putting a knife to his head, sticking syringes through his cheeks, and stapling his lips. Despite all of this, the crowd seemed to be having a pretty good time, and the show could be described as somewhat of a success. What happens next, however, is even more grotesque, and I don't even know if I'm able to describe it. We see Edwin attach some nails and pins to an area of his body that probably shouldn't be near any nails or pins. I've seen a lot of things in my time, but this little 15-second segment of the DVD is almost impossible to watch because of how close up and gross it truly is. They go back to to showing the live performance, but they cut from this to what we just saw, and it gets worse and worse every time I see it. After what feels like a decade, that part of the video finally ends, and we are again shown a pretty professional looking music video. I would even say it looks better than the first one. The song, which is called Gargoyle Anthem, is by all means well produced and sounds quite good. This is followed up by the video for the song The Crack of Dawn, which is inspired by the Mad Max movies, and it's very well made. There's some stunts in here that look pretty costly, and you can tell that some real effort has gone into the production of this shoot. It was around this time that I started to question if Edwin's antics on and off the stage were a help or a hindrance to the band. Usually when we talk about acts like these, their antics are what get them to where they are today, but with Kettle Cadaver I feel like there was a lot going on outside of the antics, but it was so hard to focus on anything but Edwin himself because of how interesting and downright strange he was. You can tell that he put a lot of love and work into some of these songs and videos, but people didn't really pay much mind to it because of what was happening outside of that. Even I couldn't really focus on these videos the first time I watched this DVD because of how much I was taken aback by what happened 10 minutes prior, which is a shame because there are some real gold mines here. But I digress because we still have quite a bit of the DVD to talk about. So after The Crack of Dawn, we see two videos that are quite DIY in nature. These are for the songs Power of Pain and Erase. If you've seen The Broken Movie by Trent Reznor, you might get a similar vibe from these videos. An eerie, off-putting energy that can only be made when the video is truly independently produced. After this we get visuals for the instrumental of a song called Hell House, and as you might be able to suspect, the video shows us a creepy looking house with some strange objects inside of it and some creepy footage of Edwin himself. This house is actually noteworthy because it belonged to Edwin and was designed by him. It was called the Mower Shack, and it was a sort of museum slash venue that had all sorts of strange memorabilia and trinkets. It pops up in a lot of these videos, and this is one of them, but it will also come into play later in the video, so keep it in mind for now. After this we get visuals for the song Sinister Clock, which shows them performing the song outside. We then get some visuals for the instrumental of the song The Descent, and after this we get the music video for Lair of Serpents, which as you can imagine features a lot of snakes and some visuals that make it look like there's some kind of satanic ritual going on. Finally we get a somber song, a track called Fallen, which features Edwin playing the piano. It sounds a bit depressing, but apart from that it's actually quite nice. The video on the other hand is anything but, showing us highlights from the DVD, Edwin covered in blood and some clips from their live shows. We get one final shot of Edwin playing the piano and the DVD ends. It's a wild journey to say the least, but the craziest part is that it's only half an hour in a story that is years long. We will probably never see the true extent of how far some of these antics went. I guess all we can do is imagine. The same year that Among the Damned was released, Edwin married his girlfriend at the time, Eva O, who was also an ex-girlfriend of serial killer Richard Ramirez. Edwin and Eva were described as inseparable for quite some time, but despite their compatibility, the marriage was relatively short-lived. By the mid-2010s, they had fully separated and Eva wanted nothing to do with Edwin. This affected him quite a bit, and unfortunately some of Edwin's later years were also his darkest.
It's making me crazy. I don't know if I'm talking to you right now, Eva, or who I'm talking to. This is what I've been going, this is how it goes on, isn't it? You know I have Eva right there in the bathroom. Yeah. But she's not the same now. Doesn't talk to me much. She's very stiff because she's made out of wood, you know? So it's hard for me sometimes. What else should I do? I just want to do what's right. I just want to be sincere. You know, forgive me. Forgive me, that's all.
In the mid-2010s, Kettle Cadaver had essentially disbanded, and Edwin himself spent almost all of his time on his acre of land, living a life of seclusion. Like I said previously, Edwin and Eva were no longer together, and Edwin was not taking this well. In the documentary, he said that although he still loved her, he knew that staying away from Eva and her daughter was the best course of action. It's evident that he felt this way about people in general, and because of this, his interactions were very limited. Edwin now spent his days drinking and occasionally actually creating, but his antics, which could once be described as performative, had turned into a very strange lifestyle. He would sleep in a coffin with a life-size model of Eva, and it seems as if he considered this model to be his actual partner. He also recorded a number of strange videos where he could be seen drunk or crying, oftentimes directly addressing Eva herself. He actually gave the directors of Dead Hands Dig Deep access to this footage and described the creation of the documentary as therapeutic, even attending a screening of the movie. It's likely that talking about all these things and getting them out in the open was a cathartic experience, and he even stayed in touch with the directors after the documentary was released. Unfortunately, despite all of this, on the 20th of June 2017, Edwin took his own life. Although he had complicated, nuanced relationships with almost everybody that he knew, many people still mourned him and remembered him for the fascinating, creative, and troubled man that he was. He bared his soul, which often led to many problems in his life, but it also led to interesting artistic pursuits, albums, DVDs, and documentaries that would be looked back on fondly, and live shows that became truly infamous. Like I said in the beginning, Kettle Cadaver was not widely known. They didn't have the success that their contemporaries did, and it's unlikely that Edwin even wanted them to. But what they did have was a one-of-a-kind energy that encapsulated the frustrations and rage of a small area. The people who went to these gigs and lived to tell the tale will talk about them until they are old and grey, and Edwin's name can live on through that. It may seem small or inconsequential to some, but on the other hand, it's a story of trying to make something out of very little. You can see that in his wrestling shows, his live performances, his music, and the videos that accompany them. Despite all of his hardships, Edwin truly tried to create something real, and it's hard to deny the authenticity of what he put out there.
I never leave this place.
You know, it's true. You know, I'm sure every small town they say that curse, but here it's pretty morbid reality. However ugly it is, let the story be told. You know what I mean? And that's where it is. That's where I'm at today.